Right now, the Chicago Bears are sitting on a ticking clock, holding the most valuable rookie quarterback contract in football while facing a high-stakes gamble that will either deliver a Lombardi trophy or incinerate their franchise's future. Atlanta's trade rumors have opened a brief, dramatic rift in the NFL market, placing Bijan Robinson's game-breaking receiver hybrid skill set within Ryan Poles' reach for a price that would terrify any conservative front office. Handing over premium draft capital while swallowing a $20 million plus annual contract creates an immediate salary cap nightmare that threatens future extensions for Darnell, Wright, and Odunze. Yet, just like Christian McCaffrey transformed San Francisco into a powerhouse, unleashing an all-pro weapon inside Ben Johnson's multi-back system doesn't just shield Caleb Williams, it turns Chicago into an absolute nuclear option in the NFC North. Today, we break down every film study, financial risk, and roster casualty to reveal why the Bears must sell out for greatness right now before their Super Bowl window slams shut forever. The spark that ignited this firestorm did not begin in Hallas Hall, but in the pressure cooker of the Atlanta Falcons facility. Reports of a quiet, tense holding surrounding Bijan Robinson sent instant shockwaves across the entire NFL ecosystem. When an elite player of Robinson's caliber signals even a fraction of dissatisfaction with his current situation, front offices around the league immediately scramble to run the numbers. But for the Chicago Bears, this is not just another piece of league gossip to digest during a slow news cycle. It is a siren song that directly targets the central thesis of their current roster architecture. The mere whisper linking Chicago as a serious landing spot for Atlanta's centerpiece athlete has divided the fan base into two wildly fanatic camps. On one side stand the pragmatists, clutching their spreadsheet draft value charts and warning of financial ruin. On the other stand the football purists, who recognize that windows of competitive dominance in the modern NFL do not open slowly. They detonate, and they demand immediate, merciless action to maximize them before the reality of secondary contracts sets in. To understand why this theoretical trade package is causing such a seismic disruption, you have to dissect what a deal of this magnitude actually demands from Chicago's asset vault. Acquiring an all-pro tailback in his absolute physical prime is not a transaction settled with mid-round scraps and late-stage conditional considerations. The starting point for Atlanta to even remain on the phone begins with Chicago parting ways with a premium first-round draft pick, alongside a high-upside interior player to cushion the blow of losing a generational face of the franchise. But the draft capital is only the entry fee. The moment Robinson steps off the plane at O'Hare, Ryan Poles would be required to sign off on a market-setting contract extension north of $20 million per season. That figure immediately eclipses every historical metric for positional spending at the running back spot, vaulting Robinson into elite wide receiver compensation territory and drastically altering the team's long-term salary structure. This brings us to the core dilemma, a philosophical dilemma that will define Ryan Poles' entire legacy in the Midway. Can a franchise currently blessed with the ultimate competitive cheat code, a championship-caliber quarterback performing on a cost-controlled rookie contract, actually afford not to go all in on an all-pro superstar? Modern analytics preach the gospel of positional value, insisting that paying running backs elite money is the fastest path to mediocrity. Yet, traditional football wisdom reminds us that a young quarterback's development is immensely accelerated when he is surrounded by elite, matchup-proof weapons who force defenses to cover every blade of grass. Caleb Williams possesses the transcendent arm talent to carry an offense, but demanding that a young passer shoulder the entire creative burden without a dominant backfield engine is a dangerous gamble. The trade rumor that shook Bears Nation is not merely about landing a star runner, it is a fundamental trial of Chicago's identity. It forces the front office to decide whether they will remain cautious stewards of long-term roster flexibility or aggressive predators willing to sell the future to conquer the present. When you turn on the tape and dissect Bijan Robinson's stunning 2025 campaign, you quickly realize that labeling him a running back is not just an understatement, it is an evaluation error. Amassing 2,298 all-purpose scrimmage yards in a single season does not happen by simply taking handoffs between the tackles. It happens because Robinson operates as an elite positionless weapon capable of annihilating defenders from anywhere on the formation. The film reveals an athlete who transitions seamlessly from a traditional offset shotgun alignment to lining up isolated in the boundary receiver spot, running crisp route tree routes that completely erase linebacker leverage. His short area agility and contact balance allow him to turn broken, dead-on arrival plays into 15-yard explosive plays, while his soft hands and spatial awareness make him a terrifying mismatch against nickel cornerbacks and safeties alike. Defensive coordinators facing Atlanta were forced to commit dual coverage help just to account for his press-snap alignment shifts, effectively surrendering numbers in the box or leaving outside receivers in single coverage. Placing a player with this exact tape profile into the hands of an offensive mastermind like Ben Johnson is the ultimate tactical match, bordering on an offensive cheat code. To understand why this acquisition would break the rest of the league, you only have to look at how Ben Johnson systematically weaponized Jahmyr Gibbs during his tenure coordinating the Detroit Lions' explosive attack. Johnson's play-calling architecture thrives on multi-back concepts, pre-snap motion disguises, and split-field reads designed to force defense captains into making impossible split-second choices before the ball is even snapped. Under Johnson, Gibbs was not merely utilized as a complementary runner, but as an explosive chess piece deployed in two-back sets, pony personnel packages, and creative wheel route designs that flooded zones and compromised defensive rules. Robinson possesses all of Gibbs' home run speed, but pairs it with an extra 15 pounds of pure muscle and elite contact balance, allowing him to absorb heavy collisions between the tackles without sacrificing an ounce of his open field twitch. Inside Johnson's offensive system in Chicago, Robinson wouldn't just replicate that dynamic Detroit role, he would transcend it, acting as both the primary ground hammer and the ultimate slot receiver hybrid that forces opposing defensive coordinators to throw out their base game plans entirely. The downstream impact of adding a true superstar threat to Chicago's offense extends far beyond Robinson's individual stat line. It fundamentally transforms the development curve and operational world of Caleb Williams. During a young quarterback's crucial early years, nothing slows down processing speed faster than facing clear, predictable passing downs where defenses can unleash exotic blitz packages and drop 8 players into coverage lanes. Robinson's presence on the field completely alters those down and distance equations by forcing defenses to keep heavy personnel boxes packed, keeping linebackers glued to the line of scrimmage out of sheer terror for the run. That constant tension instantly creates massive, clean passing windows in middle of the field zones, allowing Caleb to operate with rhythm, throw on timing, and eliminate the need for dangerous hero ball scrambles on every second and long. When a defense knows that overcommitting to the pass rush means surrendering a 70-yard screen pass touchdown to a tailback who breaks 3 tackles in space, those pass rushers lose their edge. Acquiring Bijan Robinson isn't just about loading up on firepower. It is the ultimate insurance policy designed to shield, elevate, and accelerate Caleb Williams' path to becoming an elite NFL quarterback. The cold, unyielding mechanics of the NFL salary cap do not care about viral highlights, offensive synergy, or suburban fan euphoria. When you strip away the romantic narrative of bringing a generational playmaker to Soldier Field, the anti-trade argument emerges as a brutal economic reality that could paralyze Chicago's roster construction for a decade. Committing over $20 million annually to a running back, a contract figure that mirrors Saquon Barkley's historic threshold, violates every foundational doctrine of modern football analytics. The running back position remains the most physically volatile, high attrition, and easily replaceable role on a football field. Sinking top-tier wide receiver money into a player who takes 30 heavy hits a week creates an alarming single point of failure. One awkward land on a synthetic turf surface or a structural knee injury completely evaporates that cap allocation, turning a crown jewel asset into an anchor dragging down the entire franchise. To fully grasp the prospective financial catastrophe, you must project Chicago's cap sheet 3 years into the future rather than focusing solely on current space. The hidden tax of operating an NFL franchise is that every drafting success eventually demands a massive financial payout, and Chicago is rapidly approaching a terrifying convergence of mega extensions. Premium offensive tackle Darnell Wright will soon command market-setting tackle money to protect the edge, while wide receiver Odunze's inevitable second contract will require a massive commitment in line with the surging wide receiver market. Looming over all of this is the mega extension for Caleb Williams himself, a staggering figure that will eventually consume roughly 20% of the team's entire cap space. Swallowing a $20+ million hit for Bijan Robinson forces Ryan Post to play a zero-sum game. It guarantees that when these homegrown foundational anchors reach their negotiating windows, Chicago will be forced to let premier talents walk in free agency, gutting the team's depth to pay for a singular luxury backfield engine. Equally damaging is the draft capital drain required to pull off a transaction of this magnitude. Surrendering high-value first and second-round selections deprives the front office of the cheap, cost-controlled talent needed to balance a top-heavy roster. Premium draft picks are not just lottery tickets for superstars, they are the primary mechanism for filling crucial trenches with elite, low-cost starters. Trading away those assets means forfeiting the ability to restock critical positional groups along the pass-rushing defensive line and interior offensive line, where game-winning battles are truly decided. While a crowd swoons over an acrobatic hurdle in the secondary, championship teams quietly win through rotation depth on the defensive front and sustained structural integrity up front. Sacrificing cheap, elite draft slots to absorb a market-resetting running back contract is a high-wire act that leaves zero margin for error, transforming a single roster flaw into a structural nightmare. Yet, despite those intimidating financial and asset caveats, history consistently shows us that when a true, rare superstar becomes available on the trade block, calculated aggression is often what separates perpetual contenders from Super Bowl champions. Consider the historic blueprint set by the San Francisco 49ers when they orchestrated their blockbuster acquisition of Christian McCaffrey. Skeptics at the time echoed the exact same warnings, decrying the draft, capital surrendered, and the inflated running back salary absorbed for an offensive luxury piece. But the moment McCaffrey stepped into Kyle Shanahan's system, the entire geometry of San Francisco's offense transformed overnight. McCaffrey did not simply take carries, he elevated the efficiency of every surrounding player, giving the offense an undefendable, multidimensional identity that immediately propelled them into a dominant, sustained Super Bowl powerhouse. For the Chicago Bears, Bijan Robinson presents that exact same rare, field-tilting opportunity, a chance to inject an all-pro catalyst directly into Ben Johnson's calling card, play-calling architecture. This aggressive mindset becomes even more urgent when you evaluate the absolute Cold War arms race raging within the NFC North division. Chicago is not competing in a vacuum. They operate in a ruthless division where their rivals have already constructed heavy-hitting, multi-dimensional backfields designed to dictate the physical tempo of games. The Detroit Lions pairing Jahmyr Gibbs with David Montgomery created a relentless, two-pronged monster that systematically wears down opposing defenses, while the Green Bay Packers fortified their ground attack with explosive playmakers to insulate their young passer. Against this backdrop of divisional heavyweights, relying on standard offensive depth is a recipe for standing still while your rivals surge ahead. Chicago cannot expect to capture the crown by merely matching their opponent's baseline production. They require a nuclear option that fundamentally flips the competitive dynamic. Adding Bijan Robinson instantly gives Chicago the premier offensive weapon in the entire division, giving them the raw horsepower needed to outpace Detroit's explosive unit and command respect across the NFC landscape. When you weigh this terrifying superstar trade against Chicago's internal backfield alternatives, the gulf in raw ceiling becomes painfully obvious. The current backfield rotation of hard-nosed power runner Roschon Johnson and high-motor young back Kyle Monangai offers dependability, tough yards between the tackles, and solid pass protection. They are dependable role players who can keep an offense stay on schedule in standard, predictable situations. However, neither Johnson nor Monangai possesses the game-breaking athleticism, open field twitch, or receiver hybrid versatility that forces opposing defensive coordinators to alter their game plans during weekly preparation. While a committee approach can grind out solid baseline efficiency, it completely lacks the dynamic explosive threat that turns ordinary 3-yard checkdowns into game-changing 80-yard touchdowns. In high-stakes postseason football, games are rarely won by solid committee rotations grinding out incremental gains. They are decided by elite playmakers who create magic when structural plays break down. Settling for internal depths keeps Chicago respectable, but selling out for Bijan Robinson elevates them into an unstoppable force. Ultimately, the choice facing general manager Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears front office comes down to a fundamental, existential fork in the road between long-term financial conservatism and aggressive, immediate championship ambition. On one side of the ledger lies a terrifying financial nightmare, a path that threatens to anchor the organization's salary cap structure with a record-setting $20+ million running back contract that could eventually trigger cap hell down the line. It is a path where future team depth might be sacrificed, where tough personnel decisions regarding homegrown talents will inevitably haunt the roster, and where a single unexpected injury to an elite tailback could cripple years of meticulously calculated rebuilding efforts. Yet, on the other side of that ledger sits the undeniably enticing reward of an unstoppable, multi-dimensional offensive machine that could completely redefine the Chicago Bears for a generation. By pairing a transcendent talent like Bijan Robinson with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson's visionary calling card schemes, the Bears would not merely be acquiring a ball carrier, they would be adding a match-up-proof weapon capable of breaking opposing defensive game plans before the ball is even snapped. For Ryan Poles, this moment represents the ultimate test of his overarching team-building philosophy. Throughout his tenure in Chicago, Poles has built his reputation on patience, asset accumulation, and an unwavering commitment to constructing a sustainable contender through the NFL draft. But sustainable building is only half the equation in modern professional football. The truly great general managers are defined by their ability to recognize when the theoretical future must yield to the immediate present. When a rare generational playmaker becomes potentially available on the trade market, rigid adherence to traditional positional value charts can transform prudent management into self-defeating hesitation. Passing on a player of Robinson's rare caliber out of fear of future financial entanglements means intentionally leaving a portion of Caleb Williams' immense potential uncapped during the most critical developmental phase of his career. Providing a young quarterback with an all-pro pressure release valve who commands dual coverage on every snap is not a luxury flex. It is the single most effective way to guarantee his ascent into the absolute upper echelon of NFL quarterbacks. Furthermore, the timing of this dilemma aligns perfectly with the most valuable asset in modern sports economics, the cost-controlled rookie quarterback contract. The Chicago Bears currently occupy a golden operational window where Caleb Williams provides elite playmaking at a fraction of his true market value. History unequivocally demonstrates that this temporary financial relief is the exact time frame when championship contenders must push all their chips into the center of the table. Waiting for the perfect risk-free roster alignment is an exercise in futility because no such environment exists in the high-stakes world of professional football. The salary cap, while imposing, is ultimately a flexible accounting tool that can be maneuvered, restructured, and deferred through creative contract engineering. What cannot be manipulated or recovered is wasted time. Allowing Caleb's rookie contract window to pass without surrounding him with absolute top-tier game-altering weaponry would be a far greater organizational failure than overpaying for an elite superstar who instantly transforms Chicago into a terrifying Lombardi trophy contender. When you weigh every single metric, film study, divisional matchup, and financial projection, the final verdict becomes crystal clear. If Atlanta places Bijan Robinson on the trading block, Ryan Poles must throw caution to the wind and pull the trigger. The NFC North is actively evolving into a brutal arms race where timid teams will inevitably be left in the dust. Internal committee depth may keep the Bears competitive, but mediocrity is the enemy of greatness, and respectability is not the goal for a franchise starved for ultimate glory. Adding an all-pro hybrid back of Robinson's caliber turns an exciting young offense into a nightmare for defensive coordinators across the league, elevating Chicago from an intriguing playoff hopeful into a dominant Super Bowl favorite. In the NFL, playing it safe when you have the chance to achieve total dominance is the most dangerous risk of all. The time to strike is right now before this extraordinary window slams shut forever. Would you trade a first-round pick and $20 million a year for Bijan Robinson? Debate below.